Oregon is literally the gayest state in the union. According to the Williams Institute out of the University of California in Los Angeles, roughly about 7.8% of Oregon's residents identify as LGBTQ. That is roughly about 253,000 people in the state that identify as LGBTQ plus, but obviously it differs. I know that on average, of course this is hard to measure because it's a self-reporting type of average, but I know that on average about 10% of the population identifies as LGBTQ, similar to this fact that roughly about 10% of people are left-handed, and I happen to be both of those too. Oregon is the gayest state in the union, but what was interesting about this report that I read on the Oregonian was that Washington, D.C., if it were a state, would be even gayer than Oregon. Somewhat surprised just because Washington, D.C. has about 700,000 residents. Research showed that it was about I think somewhere around 14% of the population identifies as LGBTQ+. Also at the same time, there's a lot of government workers there near all these major cities, these states. So in a way, it's kind of like a hub. It's I think it was one of the first places where you could get married as a same-sex couple, but don't quote me on that. I definitely know that Washington, D.C. was not one of the first. I think all of this information that I recently got about Oregon being very gay is kind of confirmation bias. I've always grown up in a very gay setting. Both my parents are lesbians. I was raised by lesbians. People in my middle school, particularly people in my high school, it seemed like there was someone coming out every month, mostly girls. The guys were a little bit more lagging / DL, if you know what I mean. I was really thinking the other day of there are so many people who are concerned with trans rights and women's sports and stuff, even though trans people make up 1% of the population, and even though less than 1% of that 1% has regrets about gender reassignment surgery or procedures. That's such a small percentage. I was wondering how visible are trans people in my day-to-day life. I never understood people's bigotry. I understand it's comes from a place of insecurity, control, and just blatant hatred, but I never understood how there's this whole culture of hating them, mixed in with obviously hating gay people. But clearly hating gay people these days is not very kosher. Americans have widely accepted gay people in terms of tolerance, which is a start, Pondering all of this, I realized oh yeah, I see a lot more trans people here in Oregon than I do, at least visibly. And I've always seen that since I was a child, so it really wasn't, so it's really not that big of a deal. But when I hear people engage in culture wars about trans people and what they think they know and stuff, and just the dehumanizing nature, it's just all a bit played out. These arguments that these people are having aren't genuine concerns people have. Maybe some of them are, but the ones who are providing those types of narratives are the ones that are just wanting to distract everyone from the real problems at hand, which is we are living in late-stage capitalism where it matters more on the return for corporate shareholders rather than a company caring about its employees, paying people a living wage. Our government is so corrupt, and the fact that I have to be oh, Oregon is the gayest state because that is something quite rare of a state having the amount of tolerance for queer people. For example, Oregon has always at least Oregon in the last couple of decades has always shut down anti-gay bills. If you're trans, you're able to get health care here. And there's not a war on books or higher education. There's no culture wars happening on campuses. It just, we don't subscribe to all of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Oregon's a bit feisty, but a little bit rebellious, Oregon is. I have to say that instead of having like the entire country or most of the country being a place where gay people can go to and feel safe and just like an average, typical American. But until that, I guess it's important to highlight the places where if you are different, you'll be accepted. You'll be accepted here in Oregon. This is not a commercial, an advertisement for Oregon, but I really appreciate Oregon's liberal views and ideals, and how in a lot of ways, especially in terms of environmental protections and geologic research, like Oregon is just at the top. And I've been to many places around the world, and I don't think that there's any place that I would really want to like fully take root. But that said, I do fucking love London, so let's figure out like something in between. We'll spend some time in Portland, spend some time in London. Alright guys, well that's the video. Remember, I post new videos every single day. Make sure you smash the subscribe button, press the bell notification so you're notified of all future posts. And yeah, I'll see you guys later, alright? Have a good one. Love you guys. Bye. Peace.